Hi, hello, I'm Sam Harris and I read, review and discuss fantasy and science fiction books, and today we are reviewing the 2 clown interlude chapters of The Wandering Inn Volume 2. So, if you're not a Wandering Inn fan, or you haven't been watching my Wandering Inn coverage on the channel, you might be thinking to yourself, this is a bit weird to review just 2 chapters by themselves. But these chapters are kind of separate from the main narrative, and the way that The Wandering Inn is published, it kind of makes sense in some ways to do mini reviews for stuff like this. So this is the first one of these that I've done, although I have tackled interlude content in the past. This is the first kind of like mini review, I guess. I'm not going to spend a billion hours here talking about this one because the second chapter was actually quite short. I was expecting them to be like 2 decent length chapters, but the first one took me like half an hour to read, and the second one like 10 minutes. So let's dive right into things. Now we have a POV in the section of the clown. So this is a guy from our world whose name is Tom. And when he got to the fantasy world, one of the big things that he did was in order to kind of like cope with being isekai'd, he started telling jokes. And that gave him a new class that no one had ever seen before. That class was called Clown. And he decided to embrace that and, start wearing motley, start painting his face, start juggling. And because he has the hero class, like a lot of people from our world seem to have, he has managed to level incredibly quickly. So he's level 19, and he's really trying to get to level 20, because at 20 you get a good skill, basically. We've seen this before with Erin, and one of the things that Tom's got a problem with is that he doesn't actually know what is causing him to level, because it's not like he's a fighter where he's getting in fights. It's not like he's like Erin where he's an innkeeper where he can be like, oh, I'm going to do some good innkeeping and serve lots of customers or whatever. Tom really has no idea. He's like, well, clowns aren't meant to be funny, so cracking jokes probably isn't going to get me there, and he's not very good at telling jokes. He's trying to do things like pratfalls and juggling, and he even has a couple of cool skills. So he has a really interesting and useful skill where he can pluck something. So anything that's within 5 feet of his person, he can pluck as if it was like sleight of hand. So he does this a couple of times in the intro chapter. We're also introduced to a few other people in this chapter, mostly kind of like no-namers. Like there's a character called Richard who's a knight, and he's one of the other hero characters. Tom mentions as well that so he came into the in-world in a group of 50, and they were thought the king of that world thought they were heroes, so just sent them off to fight monsters. But, they're just kids. None of them had ever fought a monster before. So 30 of them died pretty much straight away. And there's only 20 left. And those 20 have just been shipped off to a border town to kind of be forgotten about, really. And I did like this conceptually. I thought it was a pretty good idea. I really like this, I like the you expect to be like best of the best when you go to this fantasy world. Like you expect to be a hero or whatever, but heroing is hard. I did really enjoy that. There's other characters there, and everyone when they arrived had the hero class, but eventually it's gone away. Some of the fighters still have it, and Tom still has it, which is really interesting, and he's not mentioned that he still has the hero class, and none of them who've lost it have told anyone they've lost it. But he thinks that the hero class is about perception. So if people perceive you to be a hero, then you get the hero class. Very interesting as to why Tom still has it, because nobody really perceives Tom as a hero. Maybe they see him as like, he's trying hard, I guess. Lots to think about in these chapters. One of the things that I really liked was the like animosity and like the downsides of being a clown. So like he has a skill which just creates clown music that just starts playing, and it's random and it's loud and it's annoying, and the clown music kind of just kicks on and everyone gets really pissed off at him and asks him to leave. And he talks a lot about the other kids and how they're like, oh, the army's going to rescue us, or they'll get to go back, or someone will send for them. And Tom was kind of like, what's the term? He's like accepted it. Like he's accepted that they're there and that's, that they're stuck. But a lot of the other kids haven't. And that is really interesting. I do like that. The crux of this kind of first chapter is to kind of introduce you to the little village they're in, to give you a little bit of a flashback to when most of them died, and to talk about Tom and the clown powers and kind of how he's working his way through them. But then at the end of the chapter, the town that they're in is attacked by demons. So demons are like humanoid or ex-human. I think they actually used to be human, like things that have been like cursed and turned into half monsters. So you have like trolls and ogres and like crab people and stuff. And they're attacking the town, and the town is doomed. But and because the town is doomed, the people from our world are just going to abandon it. They've made the decision that they can't save everyone, so they're just going to save each other. And they're going to run to try and get to the nearest outpost to try and get soldiers to like take back the town or whatever. Like that's the excuse they've given, but essentially they're all running. And Tom sees a little boy that he knows who is someone who's like laughed at his jokes, and he's been mentioned in the previous chapter, or the previous section, and his name's Willem, I think, and he sees him and he's like, oh, I'm gonna have to go and save him, and Tom's like, no, you guys go, I'm gonna save Willem. He's kind of come to the realization that he's probably going to die, but he has to do something. He can't just run away. Really interesting, and that maybe that is a part of why he has that hero class. The hero class is super interesting because it makes everyone level really fast, which is why he's got to level 20 so quickly. Anyway, so Tom goes outside and he's attacked by an ogre, and the ogre basically smashes him and he flies across the across the town. And Willem is also smashed, and like he's smashed to the point where Willem's like legs and torso are facing in different directions. Like his spine is like all the way spun around. The description is quite grim. It's one of the closest things to grimdark that I think we've had from Pirate Arbor, actually. And then Tom is hit again, and this time he levels up. And he levels up and he gains a few things. He gains pain tolerance, and the big thing that he gains is minor insanity. So when Tom wakes up from this, he's like level 24 at this point, I think, and he's basically the Joker. Like he's the Joker in a fantasy world. He is an insane clown. He's lost his grip on sanity completely, and he's using his powers of things like sleight of hand to like steal knives and axes from enemies and murder them. And I'm not a big fan of the Joker in DC Comics. Like I read comics, and I'm not a big fan of the Joker. I explicitly really didn't like the movie. However, the Joker in a fantasy world is a concept I can get behind, and also the Joker with a concept of who the Joker is from popular media could be really interesting. We've already had references to Batman before, so I don't see any reason why there wouldn't be any, Joker discussion. A character like this, who is very of our world, very of our sort of culture, being interpreted through this fantasy lens, and also, taking part in a fantasy story, in a fantasy world, really, really is going to be fun to see how they mesh and vibe, or do not mesh or vibe, with future fantasy stories that we get. I really, really like these chapters, and I was kind of sad when they were over, I have to say, because I wanted more Tom. I wanted to see, like, what's the next step for Tom, and is the concept thing in my head is like, oh, is the insanity going to get worse as he levels? Is he going to go from minor insanity to major insanity? Is there a point, and it's an interesting condition as well. We haven't really seen conditions with other leveling, like Erin doesn't have, like, oh, you're really good at waitressing, but you can't do sums. Like, that's not really a thing. So we don't have these negatives, these curses, these conditions for other characters. So I wonder if that is an aspect of how powerful the clown's skills can be combined with this minor insanity. So, like, removal of the inhibitions, and also removal of and increasing things like the pain tolerance, make him a super, super interesting character. I don't know. I think I saw that they're not well liked in the community. Based off these 2 chapters, I just see a ton of potential for a bit more of a serious and darker tone of storytelling from Pirate Arbor, and I know that that's kind of not what the Wandering Inn is, but giving us that little bit of, well, it could eventually be something like this, is super, super interesting. Really, really enjoyed it. I like the tone of the chapters, both chapter 1 and chapter 2, which had quite varying and different tones. I thought the action was really well done, and I was actually quite a contrast to the previous chapter that was mostly action, because there was more character, more heart, and more threat. Like, I kind of knew that no one was going to die, nothing bad was going to happen in the previous chapter, whereas here, like, there's tons of interesting characters, and a character I liked did get killed. Willem did get killed, even though they're only a very minor character. Having consequences for things happening in the Wandering Inn is something that we've kind of missed, so good to see that specifically. In terms of just trying to think, is there anything else that we need to discuss? So the next time we come to the Wandering Inn will be when I've finished this volume. I'm planning on getting back to it once I've got some other stuff under my belt, so it may be that I get to it in January. At the latest, I should be starting in February. My plan is to try and get some quick reads out of the way, because I want to make sure that I've got a bit of a buffer on reviews for next year on the channel. So currently I review a book a week, and I want to make sure that if there are some books that I know will take a couple of weeks for me to read, that I have that couple of weeks time without feeling kind of pressured and up against it. So yeah, starting in January, I will be trying to read across January, February, March, probably 2 or 3 shorter or quicker reads for those weeks, to try and get a cup. The idea is, right, that in each month, at least 1 week, I'll get like 2 or 3 books read, or maybe a couple of weeks I'll get 2 books a week read in those weeks, and that will give me a big buffer. If I've got, like, for example, if I can get 2 extra books read each month, that gives me a 6-week buffer by the time I hit March. So yeah, really excited for that, and especially because I'll have that 6-week buffer, The idea will be to go to longer stuff in February and March, like Wandering In, like the massive Wheel of Time books that I'm currently up against, about to start reading the big Sanderson ones. But anyway, I hope that you've enjoyed this video, and I hope that you've enjoyed the series that I've done covering the Wandering In. The Monday episode was the last episode of the weekly chapter breakdowns, but this has kind of ended up being a weekly chapter breakdown anyway. The intention was this was going to be a review of something that was more like a short novella length, but it actually ended up being a little bit shorter than I was expecting, and mostly because I've stopped looking at the word counter thing, because people said, oh, it's not that accurate, don't bother. So yeah, I've stopped really looking at the word counter thing, so I just kind of assumed that 2 interludes would be nice long ones, and they just weren't. That's not an issue. I had a great time reading them. I just wish there was a bit more for me to talk about with you guys for this video. But I would love to see you guys back here again for more Wandering In content as soon as I get around to reading the next book. Please do stay subscribed so you'll be notified when the next one goes up. And of course, if you haven't commented on this particular video to let me know what you thought of these chapters, or of this character, or of the Wandering In general, as long as it's no spoilers past here, then please do so. And I will speak to you soon.